All right, Kris. Okay, now reflecting on, see, you spent 20 years in prison, basically, just about half of your lifetime. Now, obviously, that's been, a whole different, space from being a child to prison to now being reformed. When you reflect back on your childhood, what was the environment you grew up in? Was there any early signs or experiences that kind of took you to the path of becoming, I would say, a violent offender?
I wouldn't say my early childhood. Um, it was kind of, obviously there was kind of bumps in the road. Like my dad was using hard drugs, um, and sometimes there would be like family fights for people using alcohol or whatever. But it didn't really happen until I was like in my teenage years. Um, so my father moved to England to get away from Glasgow, and while we were in England, me and my brother just really disliked living there. We were away from our family, away from our friends, and all this kind of stuff. And we just always wanted to return here. And eventually, my dad let us come back, and no long after he let us come back, he died suddenly.
Fuck. So that's a traumatic event on its own. That's how old were you when he died?
So it was 2 months before, so 1996. So I was just turning like 14. Um, basically, see my dad, right? My gran had 7 kids, right? So my dad has 6 siblings, and 3 of them passed away in the space of 13 months, and they were all in their 30s. So my uncle died of a brain hemorrhage, then my auntie died of cancer, and then my dad died of a drug related incident. So all these deaths in a short space of time um, were, was absolute chaos, and there was a lot of grief. I was witnessing a lot of grief in my grandparents' home, um, and the funny thing is, like, I've not mentioned my biological mother. So I never knew my biological mother until I was like 10 years old, right? She just appeared out of nowhere one day, right? Um, and she convinced me to go and live with her, and I lived there for 14 months. This was before my dad and my uncle and my auntie had all passed away the year before all this started happening. And I didn't know they were selling heroin from the house. And they were body eating criminality. Like my dad's family were never involved in anything like this. They were just like maybe had addiction issues and all this kind of stuff. They were nothing like this, man. And they were basically like kicking the shit out of me and my wee brother on a weekly basis. Um, and we were locked in a bedroom that had no door handle on it, so we couldn't even get out this room if we wanted to, and even if we could, we were too scared to do it. And eventually, I'd ran away a couple of times and been taken back. I went to social work a few times and they took me back because my mum convinced them that nothing was wrong. And I could maybe, because I didn't show them the marks on me, see bad, I went there when I was all bruised and bashed, they would have been arrested. But I never showed them. I never ran away when I was all covered in bruises and all that. It was like when I was just had to get away. So all that had happened, and then all the deaths, and mixed in with all this, I used to read a lot of books. So it started off Roald Dahl books and all this stuff, and then when I started hitting high school, it was all like books about Freddie Foreman, the Krays, the mafia, all these mad, crazy, organised crime figures. And um, my whole family growing up in the Gorbals, my dad used to tell me stories about gang fighting on the Clyde Bridge with boys from Brigton and Kilmarnock, and I remember just thinking that's the way forward. And nobody ever tried to talk me out of that. And then after my dad died, that's when all this stuff started really taking off in my life. You know what I mean?
And that's a whole lot of shit that's went on. But let's unpack it a wee bit. So see that when you're, your uncles and your aunties and your dads died. Now your uncles and your aunt, were you close to them? Did you have a good bond with them, a good relationship with them as well?
Yeah.
Aye.
See them every day. Seen them every day
And
up until I was 12, 13, yeah.
right, wow, okay. So that's three important people that is at a young age is obviously died in your life. And that when you were staying with your mum and you're going to see the social workers and you're explaining to them what's going on, when they take you back and they don't do anything about it, what impact does that have on your view of authority? Do you remember if that kind of was like, you know what, fuck this, man, I'm not going to trust authority here because I'm going to them, and when I go to them, they don't care.
Lachlan, I still don't trust them to this day because of all that. I really, even when I was in prison in my later years, like, I'll get into this later, but I actually committed a violent offence against two social workers when I was 15 that we'll get into later when you ask me about it. And I believe that thought was always embedded in my head, but it was an opportunistic crime. It wasn't a premeditated offence by any stretch. But even when I was in prison, I mean, like years ago, like when I was a teenager and a young adult, I would always play wee games with social workers because I felt that they were never out to help me. Every time I had put trust in them, they had betrayed that trust. So I just felt, I'm not going to lie, I tarred them all with the same brush, you know what I mean? And that might not really be fair because no every social worker's the same, no every prison officer's the same, no every cop's the same. You get bad ones and you get good ones. It's just I haven't met a lot of good ones. Do you know what I mean? So that's just the ripple effect to putting your trust in people who are supposed to they've got a duty of care to help children and they failing. And see, every time when I was in prison, see if I ever opened the paper and I used to see a case where they had failed in their duty to care for children, I used to get mad ideas in my head, man. I'd be like 16, 17, and I'd just be thinking, I'd love to meet you. But obviously, not like
But
that anymore.
that
It just saddens me now.
but that's understandable because that's been your lived experience, and for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
child who sees that as authority, and then that will scar you and that will leave you with wounds. And unless you're looking at it now in hindsight and saying it's different now. But as a young child who hasn't developed yet, who's still developing mentally, the brain is shaped by the environment. And, so your environment is shaping who you are at that time. And
yeah.
and you've lost trust in your authority. What about, did you have any people, and I know you said a minute ago that nobody kind of tried to, deter you from this, but did you have any kind of people who were trying to kind of mentor you or guide you in the right direction? Because obviously with your father using hard drugs, he's probably not going to be in telling you about gang fighting. But did you have anybody to kind of? Because for me, I had an uncle and stuff who would try and lead me down that path of righteous and being good and not continuing to commit the offences I was doing. Did you have anybody like that in your life?
No, not at all. Sadly.
No. So yeah, and it is sad because when you've not got that, you don't really know if you're doing right or wrong. So you've and you had, because I've seen some of your other stuff, and you had a relatively kind of happy childhood where you said you were just kind of playing, reading, going to your grandparents, and it was when your dad died that this all started to happen. So if you don't mind, when your dad died, what was the immediate kind of, thinking in your mind? It was like, fuck the world, this is fucking no fair, or was it just a mixture of not understanding how to deal with this everything that was going on with your uncles, your aunties, your dad all dying?
Well, the funny thing is, I remember going to view my uncle's body in the funeral parlour. I remember going to visit my aunts in the funeral parlour, and I remember we were all just crying around his coffin. But my dad's body was not fit to view, so it was almost I was in denial at first. I thought he had made this up so as he didn't need to see me anymore and all that. And do you know what? I didn't shed one tear. I didn't cry when I got told. I didn't cry when I went to his funeral. On the night I got told, I went into my house and got a baseball bat, went and got about 4 of my pals and went into the neighbouring area where we didn't get on with anybody, they didn't get on with us. Like, if they caught one of us, they'd have kicked the shit out of us. We caught one of them, we'd have done the same. When we were there, didn't get empty, but it did come out, and it would always come out when I had been drinking. And it was like this demon would just come out of my body, man. I would see somebody who I remember I'd be walking down the street one night, and I would see I'd been drinking. Say I was 14, right, and I would just change. It was just like my psyche was coming to the surface, all this pain and trauma, right, and I would see somebody who had maybe battered me in school, and I had never done nothing about it, and I would project all that rage onto them as if they were the ones who'd caused my father's death, and that was the driving force behind a lot of my violence as a teenager and a young guy. It was like I described it to somebody as like, it's like a nuclear reactor inside a submarine. You come to the surface, it comes to the surface to fire a missile and then just goes back under again. And you know about nuclear power, lasts a long time, doesn't it?
Yep. So, see what you said the drinking, because I can relate to this, because my mum used to say that I was Jekyll and Hyde. See, when I had a drink, I became this monster, and I would do things that was unimaginable to my mum, you know. And I started drinking about 15. So, when did you start, drinking alcohol?
First time I had ever tried it, I was 13, right? But that was like the one off, and that was in Hastings. I was with my brother, and my brother took me to a party, and it was all like these older people. They were all like 19, 20, taking speed and all that. But I was like pure. I I used to think like people that smoked weed were like know how the disparaging term we say junkie. I used to think like they're
Yep.
junkies, man. They're smoking hash. So imagine what I thought people taking speed. I'm a 13-year-old boy. I was quite sheltered from my dad's drug use in comparison to my brother, right? Didn't see him doing anything, and but I would see the effects of it. I would never see him doing anything, but my brother's seen him doing stuff, and my brother would go with him on these mad trips, whatever. But I was quite sheltered in comparison to my brother that way. But the first time I drank was then, and then never done it again until we came back to Glasgow, and then it was like every weekend then almost. But when my dad died, it was like a release valve. Like, I wasn't sitting drink. Back then, obviously, alcohol was a lot cheaper. We're talking the mid to late 90s. But I was just getting drunk with my pals and just going out to, because look for people who were involved in uh, street violence in other areas. So basically, other areas equivalent to me and my friends. The stuff they're doing in their area, we were just going out looking for them, and sometimes we'd find them. Sometimes we get chased with the cops. Other times we would no do anything. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, mate, I totally relate to that. That was very much the same as kind of my experience. Now, see when the drinking, see when you first kind of found alcohol, and for me, alcohol gave me a feeling that I loved to begin with, because I was a very kind of I wouldn't say I was shy. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and when I drank alcohol, it gave me this personality that I felt that I could fit in. But what it also done for me was it gave me the ability to do things like attack other people or use weapons when I was sober. I wouldn't have done it so much, you know. When you were drinking the alcohol, was that an escape? You know, did it make you, feel a certain way that you felt like you could just handle life, you could get on with shit?
No, it was just for pleasure. I've got to be serious with that, con, right? See, the violence, that was like my alcohol. It made me feel better about myself. It was a rush. I remember, like, I would, me and my pals would go to, so the high school, we were all kicked to it, but there was like 5 different schemes that went to this school, and we would all meet up during the day, get our bear glasses on and scarves around our faces, hats pulled low, and get big machetes, baseball bats, iron bars, and we would just run right through this school chasing boys we fought with and get chased after teachers. And eventually, what happened was the school had two cops patrolling the school on break times, lunch times, and home times for quite a period. I don't know how long it was. We're talking 96, 97, and they'd actually came to me, my best pal's house. They came to my grandparents, went to my best pal's house, and I walked into my best pal's house that morning when they were in the living room, and my pal was just lying on the couch smoking, like as if they weren't even there, and they were stoning saying, "You better stay the F away from that school." And I've walked into the living room and I'm like, shit. They're like, that goes for you too, stay away from that school. And they went to see my gran after it. And but the alcohol was just the fuel for the fire. For me, I'm not going to lie, it was all about revenge and getting people back all the time, and just it was consuming me. It was really consuming me because I had collected all this hurt and injustice and dents to my self-esteem and my ego, and then it was just all poured. See what you said, you were shy and all that. I was like that up until about maybe high school. I was still quite, in some respects, I wasn't confident in that. But when I became a teenager and this happened, like, there was just, I had no self control. I was just so impulsive, man. Just, mate, the best way I could explain it is I could hardly control myself. You know what I mean?
And this is all going, coming after your dad's death, So obviously that is the maybe the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. You'd had this built
Yeah.
up stuff, and then that's just gave you a kind of, as I've heard people say it, the fuck it switch. Fuck this,
Aye.
man. And you know, and did you feel that, like everything was against you? Everything, you had been done wrong. Everything was kind of against you, so you were just kind of trying to, fight back and take back control.
I don't know if I felt everything was against me. I was just out to. I felt that I was out to make a name for myself, and the best way for me to get that was through doing the things nobody else would do. Um, total, just being a total teenage maniac. And it's not to big it up, to glamorise it and sound. Because listen, I've been done in with blades and all that as many, probably more the times than I've done it, or just as many. So I nearly lost my life a few times, but it's what I'm saying. I had no concern for my own safety, no concern for anybody else's. Do you know what I mean? Just, and a lot of it was maybe to do with, maybe subconsciously, I was looking at it like, I've always been on the receiving end, getting the shit kicked out of me off my mum and her husband. My dad no giving a shit about me. and boys laughing at me in school, but bigger boys battling me and not. And then when that happened, it was just a total metamorphosis, man. Knew they were going to notice me. You've made me feel small or bad or whatever. You're going to feel it 10 times worse. That was my philosophy. Do you know what I mean? It was all about sending a
Aye.
message, about trying to appear powerful. It's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. You pull the curtain back and what's there? It's just a guy sitting flicking switches. It's not this big omnipresent wizard, is it? Do you know what I mean?
That's a good analogy, mate. Now, see that having the reputation, because again, mate, I've listened to this before when you've said it on another podcast, and I could identify with it so much. I wanted people to fear me. I wanted to have a name. I wanted people to know what Lackey for Shuttleson, I wanted
Aye.
people to know that. But see, looking back, I was just a scared wee boy, and I didn't want people to see that. I didn't want people to see what was inside of me. So I done all these things externally to protect myself.
Yep.
What was your experience with that? What was the reputation for you? Why did you want that reputation?
If I had to put it in a nutshell, exactly what you just said, mate. You're masking.
Aye.
I would never have admitted this at the time. I would never have admitted it, even if I knew, because I don't know if back then I knew what was going on. And I did know I was in a lot of pain and all that, right? But I feel when I look back on it, right, I'm 41 now. I'm not 15. I'm not 18. I've had a lot of time to think about stuff, and I think that what I was projecting on the outside was the inverse of what was on the inside, basically. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, mate, I totally get it. Aye. And what about, feeling loved, mate? Did you, as a grown up, did you feel love? Did you feel love from your family? Anybody?
I remember like when I was a child, obviously my grandpa, but see like after a while, like I just felt dead inside. Like do you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I felt like nobody cared about me, nobody knew I was here, nobody noticed me, and the only way I was getting noticed was through what I was doing. So it's like you can't notice me when I'm being good, then I'll be so bad. You will sit down when I walk in a room. Basically, that was my mentality. You will notice me, man, and I'll make sure you do. And if you do something to get my attention in a bad way, um, so I would have done something so horrific to you, man, that you would have been like, as I've said before, there was a lot bigger guys than me in prison and all that stuff, and nobody's infallible. We all bleed 8 pints of blood, but it was just all about feeling the opposite of what you were showing people. It's not to say you
Aye.
feeling weak, you're still no dangerous. No, I think you're more dangerous when you're in that state because you're no secure in yourself. You're too busy caring what other people think and he said what about me and all that. Like, no what man, no, I'm just like I couldn't give a shit, man. Like I've made my peace with it all, you know, I'm not the same person anymore, but see the other side of me that is definitely still there, but there's just I've sandbagged it now. I've got that much going on in my life now that there's no possibility I could ever go back to that. Do you know what I mean?
I guess what was it Jordan Peterson says? He says a dangerous man is a man who could
A
commit
good man is
extreme
keeping
acts
it
of
in check.
violence but chooses not to, and
Yeah,
and and that's what it is,
he's
mate.
my pal.
Because and I love that kind of stuff, mate, because you know what? It's you've lived that extreme side, mate, and you're choosing now to give back, to help people, to raise awareness, which is just it shows that even though that was tough for you, it wasn't all pointless because now that you're using that as fuel to benefit others, to help others. Now, see, before we go into the kind of the prison side of it, did you have any dreams as a kid, mate? What was your dreams and aspirations? What did you want to be when you
Oh,
grew up?
funnily enough, for like the age of 5 to like the age of 11, I wanted to be John Claude Van Damme. I was into all these martial arts films and um, just I thought all the films were amazing. I was really right into it, but like my dad never had the discipline to keep me. He would take me like to a class for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then it would stop because attending somewhere like that takes discipline on the parent to make sure the kid sticks at it as well, do you know? But after like my dad died, no, I was just like obsessed with becoming the next El Chapo or something. Like a like great train robbery or this stuff. I wanted to be like somebody like that. Somebody who the police always wanted to get but could never catch. And just I'm just glad that I never ever got even a fraction of the way there, man. Because I think once you get into that kind of game, there's no going back, man. The only going back is a prison cell for the rest of your days, or in a box, or else in a shallow grave in the forest. Do you know what I mean?
Aye. And what was the discipline like, mate? Did you have any discipline or punishment within, the family? What did you have anything like that? When you
No.
were 13,
So,
14,
wait,
15?
all right. You mean do you mean growing up as a child, or do you mean like after my dad died?
Even growing up as a child and after your dad died, like what kind of discipline did you have in there?
Grounded, or
Grounded?
maybe the odd slap to the head. But I never got beatings, never got hit with weapons when I lived with my mum in from October '93 to December '94. This wasn't discipline. This was basically torturing kids, like just battered with belts and I got 3 cot sticks. See the bars on a baby's cot, like 3 of them snapped off me, and this was all the period I adhered to for running away. Just remember my mum whacked me on the leg with a golf club because I came back for the shop where the guy short-changed me like 50p or something, and I didn't count the change, and she flew into this mad. You ever seen Misery? Cafe Bates was like that, man.
Aye.
That's you would just see you just see it building and building, and her eyes bulging out her head, and it's getting wider and wider. And I would just be total. My stomach would feel like it was about to fall out my arse, mate. No even lying. 12, 11 year old. That's no discipline. People like that have got no right being parents. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, so obviously that's kind of fucking left a massive scar because you've been, with your dad, your grandparents. It's been a relatively, safe environment where you felt, safe. And then you've got your mums and it's just this toxic culture where they're dealing drugs, they're violent, they're angry. You're exposed to all this, and we've not really spoke about that. So what was the process of your mum coming back into your life and how that transitioned and how you left? And how you got away for that.
So basically, right. Obviously, as I explained to you, my mum and dad grew up in the same area, right? They went to different schools, but my dad and my mum had me and my brother in the space of 10 months, so there's not even a year between me and my brother. So at the age of 6 months old, my dad moved for the Gorbals because my grandparents had moved. My grandpa got a job in Cambuslang, right, and my dad followed to get away from them, obviously. My mum tried to take him to court, but there was just no way she was getting us, man. Especially with our family history as well. They've just got serious charges on their records. Um, and my dad got custody, and we didn't. I know who she. I'd heard her name in that, but like it was like the boogeyman kind of thing, right? Like Freddy Krueger's bird or something. Just you'd say her name and you'd be like shit. But anyway, she appeared one day, right, in my scheme, sitting building a gang hut with my pal, right, and somebody came in and done that to me. Here's a woman out there wants you. I'm 10-year-old, mate, right, and I've walked out, and she was standing on the other side of like a waist high fence, like, come here. Now I'm like, shit, man, I thought I'd been fighting with her son or something, and she was going to get me into trouble. And I was like, who are you? And she's like, I'm your mum. And I started talking to her, and obviously she's acting seemingly normal on the surface, all that kind of stuff. She's like, where's your dad? Go to take me to meet him, I want to talk to him. I got in the motor with her and her husband, went and met my dad, and we went to a pub to talk, and they two were talking, and she's like, can I take Paul and Kris? That's my brothers, right? And my dad's like, no, you can't, blah, 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 right? So when we went back to England, she gave me her phone number and all that, and says, keep phoning me. She'd let me reverse the charges to phone or not, and then she says, do you want to come and stay with me? And I said, aye. My brother said he wanted to go as well, but I think he was just trying to get back to Glasgow to use that as a springboard to get back to my grandparents, which he ended up doing, right? But I stayed there like a pure naive idiot, man. Obviously, I'm a kid, you know what I mean? And I wanted to get to know my mum. I believed what she was spoon feeding me about living a happy life. I'd have my own room, and because I never, like, when I was staying with my dad, he'd other kids in that, and it was like he was showing me it was like a family within a family. Do you know what I mean? It was like me and my brother felt left out a lot and that, so I think we resented him for it. And I stayed there. So we're talking October '93. By about December of that same year, I knew something was wrong. And I ran away in Hogmanay, New Year's Eve, 1993, and to my grandparents, and it was only my grandpa that was home alone, and he was that scared of my mum's family. He phoned the police to come and take me back, and the police came. They took me back to Rutherglen police station, and I had to wait in a room until she came. And see, that whole time, mate, do you know what I felt like? Imagine being on death row and just waiting for them to come and open your door to take you to the chamber. That's how I felt. No even got to lie. And when I went out to see her, they were smiling, but they weren't smiling with their eyes. It was how you ever look at a shark or an alligator and it looks like it's smiling at you, but there's nothing in the eyes. That's how they look. And I was mute. I couldn't speak. I just wanted to fucking grab onto the copper's legs or something. But everything was going through my head, and they took me back to my mum's house in the Gorbals, and as soon as the lock snapped shut, man, they were on me, man, battering the shit out of me. I had hair at the time, obviously. They were dragging me about with the hair, and it was like an interrogation. What did you say? And then what did they say? And then what did you say? And in between all these questions, I'm getting hit with weapons and all, well, belts and sticks and shit. So, or a punch and all this kind of stuff. It was absolutely fucking horrendous, mate. Know what I mean? When I look back on it,
just listening to it, mate, I'm trying to picture it in my head, mate, and it's just it is horrific, man. It's no child should go through that, but especially from the hand of a mother. But I can understand that wanting to. But I can understand that you wanting to build that relationship because you've not had your mum and you've probably seen other kids with mums and you've been wishing, where's my mum? You know, why is she not here? Does she love me? Because that was the kind of the feelings I had. My dad left when I was younger, but I never realised how much of pain I had from that because as children, we take everything personally and we blame ourselves. They don't want me. They don't love me. You know, why do they not want to be with me? And you know, but then on top of that, you've went to Hastings, and then your dad's got this other family, and you're feeling left out. So, you know, do you think, you know, when obviously we've been speaking it, and do you think this has all played a part later on when, you know, you want to be seen because for all these years you felt like you're not being seen, you know, you're feeling left out, and you know, and it's just all kind of built up, and then you've just fucking exploded, and that's when you've turned into this kind of maniac teenager, you know. And can you see, does that all kind of, you know, kind of boil down to these incidents taking you to that place?
Well, I had no attachment.
You know,
like I didn't. Like I remember when I was doing my degree reading about attachment theory. I don't know if you had mentioned this to me. You'd read about this or something, or somebody else. I can't mind. Somebody said it to me the other day. And do you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. I laugh when people say to me, right, so see my mum, she died when I was in prison, right? 2017. And the screws came and asked me, do you want to go to the funeral? And I said no, right? The Sopranos is on or something. That's what I said, right? I'm not missing the Sopranos, something like that, right? And there was a guy looked at me, he's like, what, you're not got your ma's funeral? He wasn't being cheeky about it, but, and I was like, no, and he's like, still your ma? And I was like, you don't know her. Her name was Rose, we called her Rose West. That's what we used to call her, because she was just a pure psycho. So I never knew what love was until I had a child. I really didn't. And no matter what relationship I was in up until before I had my son, I would hear the words "love you," even in romantic relationships, and there was I just I doubted every word another human being said to me, unless I felt really good energy off you and you had a track record or a pattern of delivering, following through on your word, which there was very few of them about in my life. I just doubted everything you said. I was always if you try to approach me and ask me, if you try to approach me and talk to me and I didn't know you, right away I'm thinking, you're trying to lure me into a trap. What do you want? Try to figure out what's his angle here. So I think that was a end result. That was the sum total of my childhood and my lived experience as a kid, if you want to say that. You know what I mean? But I'm starting to kind of see it differently for having my own kid. But it's so scary having a kid as well, because there's this wee guy who's wholly dependent on you, no fucking up, keeping it together. Do you know what I mean? And it's such a big responsibility, man. But I manage, and I'm so thankful. Do you know what I mean? That I'm here now and I've got this life, and I go through, because let's be honest, right? See, when I'm sitting telling you about that violence in my childhood, I know people who had worse childhoods than that, and I think I sit and go like, I never had it that bad. Because see, my wee brother Tony, he was the only one of my mum's children who wasn't taken off her, and like I remember him telling me that when she went to prison, like he was living in abandoned buildings and eating out of trash bins and all that because of her, mate. She was packing. She had like she was selling drugs and she never used to spend it. I remember seeing a wad of score notes like a Swiss roll, right? I remember seeing that in her house and I contemplated taking it. And I remember thinking like she got like an inheritance when her mum died. It was like 40, 50 grand. And she's letting my brother sleep in the streets and all that when they send them money out and all. And I just thought, you can't even be called a mother. You were a life support machine for me. That's all you were. You know what I mean? To put it bluntly.
I can understand you're feeling that way, and seeing you, knowing what you know and everything, is that still the way that you feel? Have you forgiven her? Or do you still have
Nah,
that
that'll
kind
never
of,
happen, man.
you know?
You have to how could I ever forgive somebody who put their own needs, parents, a parent, somebody who is a parent, it's your job, your duty to put your kid before you, and I do that every day with my son. I don't care what I have to do with it. My son's getting first. So there's I think I would need to have some sort of love for her to forgive her, and there's just nothing there, mate. There's absolutely nothing. I'm completely indifferent towards her. I don't have anger, don't have nothing. There's just nothing there, mate. There's not even a light, a bit of a light there, man. You know what I mean? Just no.
It's understandable. And what about school, mate? What role did school have? How were you in school? Did you, you know, were
I
you
loved
kind
it.
of intelligent? You loved it, And
Well,
so, what happened there? Did the school try to help you?
so um, there used to be like talk in my family, right? I don't think it like this. I know I've got some kind of weird skills, but I remember my dad telling me that my primary school, when I was starting school, my brother started the year before me, and they had actually considered starting me at the same time, but they didn't because my dad says there was only one P1 class. So we'd have been in the same class, and because we looked very alike, everybody thought we were twins. And my dad did dresses the same up to like the age of 10. Because anything he go, I go, you had to buy two, everything. and I used to read books on countries and with all the data and the maps and capital cities, populations, land mass, and all this mad stuff. So I was into like that we're talking about growing up in the 80s and the 90s, you know what I mean? So you didn't have internet and YouTube, go and Google and all this shit. You had to read a book to know something back then. And I loved going to school and that as well, just to socialise and all that kind of stuff. Talk to lasses, all that. Do you know what I mean? But there was always good teachers. There was always teachers who I felt that were more understanding, and there were always teachers I just felt were just dead guarded. They didn't want to know. They were just like, they just thought you were a bad egg, and that's kind of understandable as well, because obviously before I've showed up, they've seen similar type cases, but then I'd be maybe questioning what you doing in the job then. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, but I liked it, and I think it helped with my education down the road in prison.
Aye. So let's get on to the prison, mate. So you're involved in, street crime, and for anybody that doesn't know, I've heard you explain it quite well in another podcast. Explain to the listener, what was it like, being involved in kind of gangs, for lack of a better word, back then.
For me, it kind of happened when my dad passed away. Like I switched kind of, like, obviously I was hanging about with boys in my own area who were a bit older than me, and then but my brother hung about with like the local youth gang, right? Um, they were called Skull Team. That was the nickname, but this name had been about long before I showed up, right? So um, my brother was already hanging about with all them, and I knew a lot of them for I was that size. But when my dad died, I started hanging about with them, and I was not the best. I was the youngest and probably the worst fighter. But I just used to do. I used to go above and beyond because I felt, it's what I said to you before. It was all about projecting an image that was the reverse of how you felt inside. You know what I mean? And we weren't like pure out smashing the area up every day or whatever, but we'd all congregate outside the local news agents. We'd all be standing and talking, and then other times we would just all go out all with the ninja gear on, with tools, and just sneak into the other areas and just chase guys, and like no random guys who you it's mad, because see when you're doing all this, right, you'll know yourself, you've grown up in Shittleston, mate. See when you're doing all this behaviour, you hear the word of mouth who's involved in that stuff in the neighbouring scheme, and then it's like, oh, he says he's doing you after school, he says he's got to smash you, he says you're a bam, whatever, and you're like, what? He's getting burst. So it's like, it's just a merry-go-round, it's shite, man. It just, violence breeds violence. That's what I say. It does. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we would go out with tinny boxes, see like a big massive box, like a caterpillar box with tinfoil in it, and go out and like steal shit out of shops and sell it and buy booze and weed and all that. We're just daft wee boys, man. But a lot of time in our hands, a lot of maybe trauma. Do you know what I mean? So this behaviour still continuing to this day, and it's not so bad in my area like when I was that age. But is what I said, it could go that way. You just never know what's going on in somebody's life.
So what kind of tools were you carrying? What kind of weapons?
I always carried knives, kitchen knives preferably. I didn't see the point in a lockback. I really didn't. To me, in my opinion, they were too small. Um, Couple of times, like I would go out with uh, chase people with a baseball bat that I kept in my bedroom. But for the most part, like my brother and that, my brother never took a blade out. He would always use a cosh. Um, so just like a mixture of blades, coshes, bottles, iron bats, see, like all that kind of stuff. Truncheons, spring coshes, all
Aye,
that. You know what I mean?
aye.
all that
Kits,
stuff.
axes, 2x4s, machetes.
Aye, aye.
So
In fact, I remember doing a
and
guy with a 2x4 in a garden, man. That was that was a a mad night. That
so let's talk about, how you end up in the prison system, so you're gang fighting, and let's go into, how you get there, because you're young, you really are young when you get your first see when you got your sentence, was that the first time you'd been arrested in jail or anything like that?
wasn't the first time I'd been arrested. It was the first time I went into the system. But I've been getting arrested every couple of weeks up until then. That was just the first
Right.
time it was serious enough to go to jail.
Okay. So what happened? What was the incident that got you your sentence? Talk us through that.
So my first sentence was actually for abduction of two social workers. Um, I'd been living with a lassie I was seeing in Castlemilk, right? And there was this boy who was her brother's pal. He was older than me, right? So I'm 14, 15. He's like 18, 19, right? And whenever I would phone her and it was just him and the bra and he'd be shouting stuff in the background, right? And I'm see the Mary does it, I'm just like, mate, I'm absolutely gonna destroy you, man. And I'm quite strange in the fact that back then when I was having an issue with somebody, I would learn everything about them that I could. I would learn where they went to school, what they eat for breakfast, what kind of trainers they wear, where they stay, is their mum and dad got a car, do they have a car? I would want to know everything about you, how many squares you use in your toilet roll. There was no information that was, no, I'm being serious, mate, right? Because know your enemy is the best means for winning a battle, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we found out that he worked in a shop in Govan Hall, right? And I said to my cousin, because he was kicked out of school as well, I was like, what, I found out he works in this shop down Vicky Road. Want to get the bus down ways one day and we'll buy a cargo once we're done. And he's like, aye, sound. So we got the bus down to Govan Hall, went in the shop, right? Now, mate, I'm carrying a kitchen knife and I walks in this shop, quite a small shop, and I'm walking round the shop, right? And this woman's looking at me and my cousin, 14-year-old boys. And she's like, can I help you? Because obviously this is your school. She's probably thinking, what are you doing in this shop? Like, what would you even be doing in here? And I'm like, oh, is so-and-so in the day? I want to speak to so-and-so. She's like, oh, it's his day off. And I was like, what? I was, oh, what, man? But you know what? Maybe it was meant to happen, man. And I said, will you tell him that Kris McPherson was asking for him? She's like, yes, no problem, son. And I'm like, and I was getting a wee thrill at that because she would see his reaction um when he said this, right? And I remember I found his phone number and I was giving him funny phone calls and all that, and I was going, you know who it is, just playing with his head. But I thought I didn't. I'm not going to lie. I didn't feel it was a threat to me, even though he was a bit older. So on the night in question, this had been all building up. Like I snuck out in the middle of the night. He had a old Ford Escort or something. I snuck out in the middle of the night and done his tyres, broke your windies, all that stuff. And then on the night of this abduction, I was drinking in my girlfriend's mum's house, and I was sitting in the bedroom, and this guy's cousin or auntie stayed across the road, and they were out fixing this motor or something, and I'm just sitting like on a perch, like a crow or something, just sitting pure staring at them. And the more I'm drinking, the more no hyped up, how do I put it? But we're saying the submarine's coming up to the surface, right? And I'm like, I'm killing him, man. I'm not literally going to kill him, but I'm going out there to do something violent, right? And my girlfriend's mum just knew, man. What we're talking about energy, right? I'm just getting off all the wrong signals without even knowing I'm doing it. because I'm not telling her what I'm going to do, because she knew there was trouble with me and him. She knew his family and all that, and she was like, she wouldn't leave my side because she knew. I kept going, just go in the living room, it's sound, I'm not going to do nothing. But she knew, because I was letting my head, that other side was going, as soon as she goes in that living room, you're going out that door. And she wouldn't leave my side. So I started arguing with her and my girlfriend. And it got to like 12 o'clock at night, 12:30 at night, and they were saying, see, just know what, just phone social work to take you back to your grand's. So they phoned them, and social workers came out, standby social workers, and I still had this kitchen knife in my tracky tap. And I'm just thinking, no what, I'll get them to drop me off at my pal's bit. And we went in the motor, and they're telling me, we're taking you to a respite centre in Stranraer or Straven or somewhere. And I'm like, what? This was like telling me I was going to Saudi Arabia back then. I'd never left a kind of 10-mile radius or something in Glasgow, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no, you're no. No, you're no. And they pulled her on the shoulder a couple of the expressway a couple of times, showing to the kind of the lay-by, the shoulder, whatever you want to call it, and it's just trees everywhere, right, on either side, pitch black. And I was just being totally unruly, man, right? No got to lie, I was just being totally argumentative. I've been drinking vodka in fucking cans for like, don't know what time that day. And I just kept saying, got to just drop me off at my pal's house, I'll stay with him and blah, blah, blah. And one of them was just like, started shouting at me and all that, right? And I just was like, no, you're not taking me here. And I've just whipped this big blade out and done that. Fucking turn this motor around and you're getting this, man. And they turned the motor around. And on the way, I was giving them directions to where my pal lived. And on the way there, I didn't know this at the time. It came out and caught one of them had tried to activate a distress button in her bag or fuck knows what, or in the motor. And I heard it, and I was like, is this motor bugged? And I was ripping all the seats open and cutting all the, because I heard a beating or something. I thought there was a tracker in the motor, and it turned out there was something in the motor. But we got to where my pal's street was, and by sheer luck, there was a cop car in the street looking for somebody. It wasn't looking for me. And they've seen it and just bounced out the motor and ran up to the coppers and told them that wee guy in there's got a blade, and just threatened us and forced us to drive here. And they've just ran over the truncheons out and just dragged me out the motor and cuffed us and took me to the police station, charged me. Know what I mean?
So
That
what
was
did you
it.
get charged with? What
Abduction.
was the charge? Abduction. And did you
Abduction.
get remanded?
Aye. Yep,
Aye.
got a 7 day.
And
I got a 7 day lie down, and so I went to Berlin, and I was in Berlin reception as a schoolboy, and there was no space in any secure units because legally I wasn't. It was illegal for me to enter the Scottish prison system, so they're trying to find me a bed in a secure unit. They couldn't. They were all full. So what happened was I went to Berlin for like say 5 hours in reception, just in a dog box myself. Kept away from all the adults. Didn't even see any adults. And then screws came and took me to Longregend, and I went to Longregend as a schoolboy for a week. And then after my 7 day lie down had finished, I got transferred to Kerlaw Secure Unit in Ayrshire to do my fully committal.
so how long was that? Did you had been sentenced by this point after your fully
No, no,
committal?
no. I got a 3 month remand. Aye, so I was in Kerlaw then.
And did you go to, was that your sentence after the 3 months then?
So after the fully committal, I went to court and pled guilty and get sentenced to 4 years at Glasgow High Court, and went back to Kerlaw.
Okay, and so that was the start. And were you 16 at this point, or were you still 15?
By the time I'd been sentenced, I was still 15. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And that's you. You're in the prison system now. So what happens there? How do you, when you you've already been in this, Kello, but what was going through your mind at this point? Was there any remorse, or were you just kind of still, that train of thought, fuck everybody?
Nothing. No, there was nothing. There was nothing. There was nothing at all. I felt dead inside, man. I felt absolutely dead. Like the only feeling I ever had back then was rage. I didn't have anything in me. Like I remember, like there was a couple of staff members for Kello in the public gallery looking at me, and I think they must have thought like, what the fuck is wrong with that boy, man? Like there was no tears, there was no rage, there was no there was blankness, just blankness. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing.
And how long did you spend in Kerlaw?
So I spent a year there, right? And when I was in there, I was getting involved in a lot of violence, right? With other boys, and it was all about my self presentation as well, thinking I'm the top man and all this shit, right? And you would get staff members who would say to me, you'll not be the top man up in Pullman, wee man, and all that shit. And I'd end up rolling about with some of them. And I ended up saying to them, put me in for a transfer to Pullman. I don't know if they were doing that on purpose to get me out or what, because they couldn't send me there. Um, and what ended up happening was, after a year I've been in care law, so I went to care law in November 97, seen November 98, the Scottish office had a meeting in care law, and I says, I want to go. They were trying to talk me out at some of them, and I was like, no, I want to go. So, my brother, and when all this was happening, my brother and my cousin had been assaulted half boys for another scheme, right, where I just hated every one of them, and they hated me as well. And I asked for a home visit to my my gran's to see her before I went to Pullman, and they agreed to it because they're not allowed to handcuff you in care law. Whereas if it was a prison service like Shots, Pullman, you'd be cuffed. They're not allowed to cuff you. You're a child. Um, and the plan was to go and find somebody to batter the shit out of because of what happened to my brother, right, and my cousin. And what ended up happening was they took me to Pullman. Two staff members for care law took me to Pullman to show me round. And then on the way back, I would stop at my gran's, and then after the visit, go back to care law, and then go to Pullman the next day. But see, when they took me to my gran's in Cambuslang, we were all sitting in the living room, and I kidded on. I says to my brother, "You walk out the living room, and when I see you walk out, I'll kid on. I'm going to the toilet, and we'll just walk out the house." And that's what we done. And they sent out the fucking armed response and everything, mate, to get me back. Because the amount of violence I was showing in there, and the things that I was saying, the threats I was making, like I was threatening staff members every day, threatening their families. See, like if I was fighting with a staff member and they done something to me, I'd be like, I'm going to kill your whole family. Not, do you know what I mean? It's no wonder they were fucking bending me up. Know what I mean? Because who's got to listen to that? Do you know what I mean? So I feel like when they were bending us up and all that, I was deserving it, but do you know what I mean? It was just a manifestation of what was going on inside me at the time. So the armed response came, got us, took me to the police. They captured us in my pal's house, kicked the door off. It wasn't kicked right off, but it forced open. Street was it was like a big kind of horseshoe street, and it was like hangweed at both sides and all that. And I'm glad I was drinking at the time because I would have shit myself, mate. Like I've never seen it like this. And see, when I'd spoke about this in another podcast, see the boy whose house I was in, he private mailed me, and he's like, I remember that. I was only 11 or 10 year old when that happened. I had to get took to my auntie's house, and I was like, fucking hell, know what I mean? But chopper it and everything, it was mental, mate. Do you know what I mean? But I get an extra charge for that. I got took to Pullman and got out after like 3 years or something.
So why did you want to go to Pullman?
I think it was to try and prove myself and I can handle it and all that shit. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously when I would be fighting with other boys in care law or fighting with staff, they would say you wouldn't be the big man in Pullman. But then see when you go to Pullman, you go to I went to the under 18s hall, which is kind of a mixture of just normal boys and boys who just would not survive in the mainstream part, right? And then when I would go up there, it would start over again. The cycle would start, and it would be you wouldn't handle it down the mainstream. So I asked to move to the mainstream bit, and then went down there and ended up in and out the seg and all that shit, threatening staff, all that, man. Do you know what I mean? And it's just all about trying to show I'm no weak, I'm no scared, all that, mate. That's what you're saying about when you're young and you're all about peacocking. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, good. Aye. So you done the 4 year in total then. So you done a year in Kerlaw, then 3 year in Pullman.
So
I mean, sorry,
basically,
aye, with Pullman.
so it worked out that I done about 2 year, no, about 2 year 11 months in a bit or something, because back then I don't know if you know, you used to be able to, so see if you were in a fight in the jail, they used to be able to add days onto your sentence. Added days awarded, it was called, in the orderly room. I had added days for fighting, and the 3 month consec for absconding for that visit to my grand's, which you do half of back then. Don't know what it is now. So I had a wee bit of time added on. I was meant to do 2 year 8 months or 2 year 7 months, and ended up doing 2 year 11 and a bit or something. And got my recall as well. So I ended up doing like nearly all the sentence, man. Know what I mean?
So you get out, and what are you then? 17, 18?
I had no long turned 18.
And you're
I
out,
was
and how
actually
long were you out for before?
I was out for about maybe 7 months or something back in. You know what I mean? And when I was out, I was just doing what I was doing before, but maybe a bit worse.
So see when you after the 7 month, you get recalled. What did you get recalled for?
Assault to severe injury, basically a stabbing.
And did you get extra time for that as well?
What happened was when I got done with that, they used that charge to return me to prison, revoke my license. The Pro Board revoke your license, right? So the police had been had been investigating me for other violent attacks, right? And this was the one they had people coming forward for. Put me in back in Pullman, and then I done like the other bit of my recall. Say there was like 8 months or something, right? Something like that. It was from June 2001 to February 2002. So I was getting out on, I think it was the 12th of February 2002, right? It was a Tuesday. See, on the Thursday before that, the week before, get took to Glasgow Sheriff Court, right? Didn't know why I was there. I was the only person for Pullman there, and I was in a cell myself in the iron lungs that's here in the basement. And
Yep.
I was there for like 9 o'clock in the morning. See, about 6:30 at night, they came and gave me my charge sheet. There was 4 serious assaults on it or something, but it was all part of the one incident, and it had happened before this stabbing that I had got recalled for. And I was just like, I'm not getting it now. So what happened was, on the day I was meant to get out, I got a gate arrest, took to Ballini, and got out after I got bailed after my 7 day lie down. And funnily enough, the indictment with the few charges on it that got dropped before it even made it to court. But the other one that got me the recall, I went to trial for that, and the judge gave me probation, 2 year probation, because he was like, "Do you want to change your
Wow.
life, not?" And I was like, "Aye," but I was just choking to get out the court. You know what I mean? I did what I was kind of thinking about it. I was mulling it, but I didn't have any way of changing back then, and I had no like things to hit what the assistance literature calls a hook for change, something to grab onto to catalyse the transformation process. I didn't have any of this, didn't know about it at the time. and I just went right back out to living the way I was living the minute he let me out of the court. Do you know what I mean?
So you get back out and you're just back to old tactics, fighting, drinking, and this is when is this when you've got a girlfriend and she falls pregnant?
No, 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 no. You mean my son's mum? No, this
Aye.
happened. This happened after my 60 when I got out after my big sentence. So what
Ah,
happened
right,
was right.
okay. So,
I'll want me to kind of go through it.
aye, talk us through, how right up until the end of your 16th.
Right. So basically, what happened was after that probation, I was out in the community for a period, a year and a half or something, right, give or take. Was living the same lifestyle, which culminated in me getting into a fight with two older guys outside the local Chinese. We were in the pub across the road. I'd come out, went out of the Chinese, got talking to these two older guys. I was carrying a pool ball and a golf ball and a sock because I was trying to stop carrying blades. And they were drunk and I was drunk, right? Got into an argument, one of them punched us, I've whipped this out, scudded one of them right between the eyes, knocked him right off a shutter, and then the other ones just attacked me. I'm rolling about with the two of them. People have come out the pub and seen it, they've all joined in. We've just basically beat them into submission. They said in court they had no means of escape. They did. They could have fled. They lived up the top of the road. They could have ran home, but they were steining, fighting us, and they punched one of my pals, knocked him clean out, right? But in court they were saying, oh, they've been herded into right, but you know what? It's done now. So basically, we'd overwhelmed them, and the wee mob were watching this for somewhere when this was all happening. See, once the guy who'd punched me, I remember him lying on the ground, just bleeding out his head and all that, and I was just whacking him with a pool ball and a golf ball, going, say you're sorry, because I was just so offended that he'd punched me, right? And especially in my own scheme when he's not even fair here, I was just like, how dare you? It is what it is. Do you know what I mean? I'm only 21 at the time. My young cousin had just been diagnosed with leukemia, and I'd been to see her in York Hull the day before, and it just kind of fried my nut a wee bit, seeing all these wee veins with tubes hanging out them, and maybe I was projecting that pain onto these people. Do you know what I mean? And when we'd left them lying on the ground, just turned to walk away, and I heard them screaming when I got to across the road. It's not even a big road, it's a small road. It's not like I was miles away. I was maybe 20 feet away, 30 feet away, and I heard them screaming. I turned round, and one of the wee guys was squatting and poking them with a blade, and he punctured the guy's one. They said in court all the wounds were superficial except for one, which punctured his lung, and that was what got me charged with attempted murder and a serious assault. So there was four of us out of about say 12, 15 people, whatever it was. I can't remember the numbers, but there was definitely a few of us, right? So we had went to court. They all got bail because they'd never been in trouble. I got remanded, and we went to Glasgow High Court, went to trial. The guy said in court it wasn't me that stabbed him, but I was still getting, because I was carrying them, because I'd been in the High Court before, and done with a stabbing the other one I told you about. And we were all found guilty, and they got 7 years each, first offence, and I got 16, but it was 10 years with 6 years extended licence. Do you know what I mean? And that was it, man. It was game over. I got out after 6 year 8 months. So I went to prison in 2003, and I got out in 2010. Met my son's mum. Got her pregnant and got recalled for breach of the peace 2 weeks before my son was born. Didn't get back out till he was 8 years old.
So see when you get that 10 year, mate, with 6 year, what was that? What was it feeling like then? You know what I mean? What was going through your mind at that point?
Do you want me to be serious with you?
Aye.
I felt that it no saved my life. See, before this happened, a copper pulled me up in the street one day. I was standing talking to these two lasses, right? And the cop, there was two of them or three of them, and they says, "Can we have a word with you?" And I'm thinking, shit, what do they want? I thought they were going to fit me up or something. Now, that's never happened to me before, right? But I was just thinking, shit, what do they want? And they were saying to me about the shit my pals were doing and how will I speak to them, and I'm like, it's nothing to do me. And they said everything they do is to do with you. Um, it doesn't matter if you're there or no. Your name's always put down as like it's because of him. So anyway, he said to me, it was an older guy. He says you'll be dead by the time you're 25, because I'd had a few. I've had to go to hospital a few times for operations for stab wounds, right? And I remember my gran always used to say to me, about me and my brother, she used to say, one's going to OD and the other one's going to get murdered. And it used to freak me out. So, in the run up to that sentence, I felt different, right? Before that offence, I felt different. Can't explain it. Just knew I didn't want to live the way I was living and do what I was doing, right? And I remember writing letters to colleges and all that and just asking how do I join, and mate, I'd actually got the Iraq War had just started, and I'd always wanted to go to the Navy because they sail all around the world and see all these mad countries and all this stuff, right? But I'm terrified at open water, like sea water. Just I stay away from see like the sea. So it's like, how can you join the Navy when you're shit scared of, like, you need to learn to swim, basically. And I nearly drowned in a swimming pool when I was 12 or something. So I had a frightening experience in a swimming pool, shall we say. And I was just like, what do I do? So I was looking for all these ways out. Um, and basically, that sentence got me first. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to use this sentence. I've got long enough to do something with this time. And I'd heard about the education that you would be able to access in the adult prison system in Scotland as opposed to the young offenders. It's no the same, right? You can, I don't know, but it was back then. I don't think you could do a degree and all that as a young offender. But I ended up, there was a prison officer in Berlin, and what he actually says to me, he says, when I told him what my plans were, he said, I think this sentence will be the making of you, wee man. That's what he said to me. And you know what? He was right. And I was walking away thinking, did I just hit him with a lot of shite there? Do you know what I mean? So it's what you're saying about your self-doubt. And then when I went up to shots and started my education, see when I got my first OU course and I seen the reading, it was like a box full of books and paperwork, and I was like, what the hell have I done? But I got through it. Know what
So
I mean?
when you get, so you go up to shots, is that what you went like up to shots to start your sentence? And initially, straight away, is that what you're thinking? I'm going to do something university wise. I'm going to do something with myself.
Well, I'd already started doing education when I was in Berlin waiting to go to shots. I did like, know how you used to get things called NCs, National Certificates? I'd done about
Aye, aye, aye,
three.
aye.
So it's like a 6 month course. I'd done 3 psychology ones in a month or something for my SQA. I was just sitting in my Peter because in bar you're locked up all day. But when you don't, it's not like shops when you're opened up all day and sitting on the couch, whatever. Because obviously it's different up there. But in Berlin, I was just like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What classes can I do? What qualifications can I get? I didn't have any. I went to prison before I left school. I never had qualifications. And every qualification I got in prison. You know what I mean?
So, what can you think of? What sparked this change, even before like this wanting to do something different. You'd already been writing to colleges. Did you believe that you had something greater to do in this earth?
I don't know if I had the mental capacity to go to think that much, like something to do on this earth and about my existence and all that. I just didn't want to live the way I was living anymore. I knew it was just hopeless. I was going to die. I was going to get killed, or I was going to end up doing life, or whatever. None of that's who consciously wants that for themselves, Um,
No.
and I think I was just trying to grab at something, and that sentence got me, and I think that I just thought, I'm away from the street now, away from all these influences. You're in jail and you need to mind your P's and Q's and all this stuff. But depending on what you get involved when you're in there, you'll be all right. You know what I mean? As long as you're not get involved in the politics and the parcels coming in, phones, whatever. As long as you're kind of keeping your business to yourself, minding your own business and all that, you'll be sound. Obviously, there's no accounting for some psycho who thinks you're looking at them the wrong way, but you just need to handle it, man. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't go down and, it's what I say, sign the sorry book and say, "Going to let me go home now." And because people say to me, "How could you handle that?" I didn't have a choice. I had to do it. I was locked in. Know what I mean?
Aye. So what was your experience like in the adult prison? You know, did you get in any trouble in there, or did you keep your kind of nose clean?
I kept my nose clean, up in shots. Um, when Oko, like, I came into a bit of trouble in the Castle Huntly, the open prison, because they were saying you should never have been sent here. They found that I'd been sent to the state hospital when I was 17. The week before my 18th birthday, Parliament sent me to the state hospital for an assessment. Um, and plus that abduction charge and sending threatening mail to social workers and parole boards, not, they were saying you should never have been sent here for shots. And I would be like, fucking send us back again. Do you know what I mean? But they were like, we can't until you do something. So I was just up there having parties, man, getting drinks smuggled in and getting mad with it, and sitting on the phone to a bird or two, just because they weren't giving me my home leaves. Took me about 6 months. Guys were coming up for shots before me and getting out before me. And I was just sitting there like this, fuck this, man, I'm getting nothing, and I'm toeing the line, I'm doing a degree and everything. I've no reports for fighting. Shots were saying he's one of the better ones. We would have a whole full of guys like him. But when I'm going to Castle Huntly, which is meant to be reintegrating you back into the community, are treating me like a high risk. And I was just like, I was just becoming pissed off with it. So I eventually got downgraded. And but when I'd went to Glencoe after that for 10 months, but it was too far for my visit, so I got sent back to Shots, and then was up in Shots for a year, and then went to Addiewell when it just opened, and I got released for Addiewell. So when I think about that period before I got released in 2010, I wasn't in a lot of trouble at all. It was when I got the recall, I was kind of, but I was in a bit of trouble in Low Moss, but I wasn't. It was nothing out of the ordinary. You know what I mean? Fighting, every that's. I wasn't like slashing people and trying to bash people's skulls in. I've seen a lot of this going on. It's just like opening a tin of beans to some people. Pardon the pun. Do you know what I mean? You're just, I've seen a lot of this going on, man. You just keep eating your dinner as if nothing's going on. But I just been in a couple of fights. That was it, mate. And then I went to Kilmarnock for my last 4 years. Don't think I was in any trouble down there. I had a couple of reports for maybe telling them to fuck off and shut my door when I couldn't be bars getting uppers. Nothing stood out.
So did you do your degree before you were released? Like before your recall? Did you finish your
Started it.
degree?
I started it, but I didn't finish it. I got out in 2010. I was halfway through it, and then when I went back in to do my recall, I finished it, and during that time,
So when you get out, right? So you've kind of done half of your degree. You get out, and you've got another half to go. And this is when you meet your son's mother. She gets pregnant. And why do you get recalled?
breach of the peace. Was arguing with
So
shopkeepers.
so you have to go and do another 6 year now because of a
No,
breach of the peace.
8 years.
8 years. Oh
8 year,
fucking
3 months.
hell, man!
So basically,
For a
you go
breach.
up.
Wow.
See being an extended sentence prisoner, but you go for pro every 12 months, right? So figuratively speaking, I could have been out after 12 months, and then if I didn't, then next 12 months, next 12 months, next 12 months until my sentence end date. I didn't get parole after them at all. They were just, every year they would hit me with a different excuse. And I felt like a pure mug even engaging them, even dignifying their job. And sometimes I have a laugh at their expense. I'll say, that's me been out 4 years now. I'm thinking about phoning the parole board and asking have I lowered my risk yet and all that. But do you know what? I can't show them what's on the inside. Do you know what I mean?
No.
And it's what they say, most reoffenders reoffend within the first 2 years. I've been out 4 years. I've never been out longer than 18 months in my life. You know what I mean? Now I'm sitting here
So,
with a completely different life.
mate, and that's the thing is, you come out with a degree, right, in criminology and psychology. So, what role did you think the education had on you reforming? You know, you coming out a different person.
Learned about myself, why I was doing what I was doing. Just because I'm quite a deep person. Even I'm a very self-analytical. In fact, I'm just analytical altogether. Analyse everything. My family even say that you analyse everything too much. And I think that it really helped me grow as a person. No perfect, but I've still got my flaws. But it really opened my eyes to a lot. And reading about desistance literature, I don't know if you've ever heard of that. So
I
desistance
haven't,
from
mate. I don't think
crime.
so.
So basically, that was what I ended up just reading all sorts of stuff about prison rehabilitation, desistance for crime. I was basically reading about myself. That's what I felt like I was reading about myself. I was looking at the literature, and the literature was looking back. You know what I'm talking about? To paraphrase
Aye, mate,
Nietzsche.
because you can, you're realizing it though. You know, you're obviously identifying with it. So, you know, how has your time in prison? How has that impacted your perspective on life now? The relationships that you've got, your son, your relationship with yourself, with people in your life. How's that shifted how you look at things?
It's made me see that I don't want to die an old man bitter in jail. I know people who like when I first went to shots, they were doing lifers that they had got when I was like 4 year old, right? And they're still there 25 years later, whatever. And it's like they were just really, really bitter. Um, and I just remember thinking in shots, I don't want to be that. And when I go out and I had my son, I just seen that there's so much to life and like I don't know, there's just so much more to life than just being an arsehole. Um,
No,
and
and
it's and I want and I want I don't have the same identity that I had when I went to prison as a 15-year-old, as a 21-year-old. I have a different identity. I just don't see myself the way I used to. Um, and I just want so much more for my life because who wants to just I've spent enough time in prison, do you know what I mean? I'm done with it. Just done with it, man, and I want to live every day.
exactly, mate. And that's what they say the key to changes is that shift in that identity. You know, now how much of that shift came because of your son? Because your son came to visit you in prison, didn't he? Did he
Yep.
come from what age did he start coming to visit you?
Newborn.
A newborn. Who brought him up to see you?
His mum started and then me and her obviously parted ways. And it wasn't really a state like a kinda a loving nurturing relationship anyway, and I don't mean that like there was domestics and battling each other and all that, but um it sometimes I think your partner is a reflection of who you are. And when I met her I just didn't know if I wanted to like still be a criminal or change my life. I didn't know my life was going 100 mile an hour, and I didn't know what I wanted. And she was still in the party lifestyle, and there was always drama at some point, man. And it was like, I don't know, it was just like sometimes she thrived on it. And I just used to be it was a bit. I used to think, is that what she thinks I'm about? So I think she thought he comes out of jail, he's nuts. I didn't know her. And obviously after about a year after my recall, she ended the relationship, which I was kind of, I wasn't surprised. Do you know what I mean? But as I say, I wasn't in love, so. And I don't think she was either. Do you know what I mean? I think it was just a relationship of convenience or something. But
Mm.
it was like during that time, obviously, like then after me and her parted, her mum and stepdad would bring my son up. But I remember I went a full year without seeing him, full year, and
Wow.
it was shown. Know what I mean?
Aye. Well, that and do you think that was your hook, what you spoke about earlier of reforming? It's
One of
like,
them,
you know what? I'm a
one of them.
father now. Aye,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a father now. You know what I mean? I have to, be a better father. I have to be a better man for my son. And you've
Yep,
obviously you've got to feel love. You've got to build that relationship with your son.
yep.
And from that bond, that love, and so, and that, do you think that kind of propelled you to kind of just be the best person you could in the environment that you were in?
I took to fatherhood like a duck to water. I'll be in prison, and it's quite funny because I remember when my Wayne's mum was pregnant. Um, we'd go to pram shops and all that, and she'd be like, "Do you like this one and that one?" And I'm just like, I'd be sitting on my phone checking my emails or something, and she said to me one day, "I'm worried." And I was like, "What about?" She said that you're not going to bond with this kid. And I was like, "What makes you think that?" She's like, "When we're going out to pick baby stuff and all, you just look like you can't get away fast enough." I says, "I can't bond with something I can't see. That child's grown inside you, and you've had two kids before. You feel it differently." But I was shitting myself as well. In the back of my mind, I was shitting myself because of the huge responsibility of this, that bringing a child into the world. And uh, when I was in prison, it just, and my brother had said that as well. My brother was saying, "I bet you any money he boosts when that kid's born." Well, I did, but it wasn't through my own choice. Um, but as soon as I seen him, I just knew. And love, to me, love grows over time. To me, right, this is gonna sound a bit mad. To me, love is different for empathising with people and caring about people. You don't want something to happen to somebody, right? But like, well, there's some people who I believe that they reap what they sow, right? Really, really terrible, evil people, right? But with love grows through interaction, right? In my opinion, and that was how my love for that child grew, because of the interaction at visits. Just seeing him, just looking at this baby, knowing it was like looking at myself as a kid looking back at me. It was mad, and the mad things he used to say, but he's just a great kid. Just doesn't give me any hassle. He listens to me, he respects me. But I gave him something to respect. Like, I'm not just lying on the couch getting steaming all day and smoking weed, taking lines of whatever you're doing, whatever. Because there's a lot of people who you need to give your kids something to respect. You need to give your wife something to respect. Do you know what I mean? So
$100%.
that was. Do you know what I mean? So, and do you know what as well? As I said before, I'm a single dad bringing up a 12-year-old boy who's been assessed for autism. Right? I need to break the cycle, because I'm telling you right now, right? See, when I got out of prison, my son was hiding in his shell. He wouldn't leave the street. Couldn't tie his shoes, couldn't brush his teeth right. Now we're talking an 8-year-old child, right? And what I noticed was my ex-partner's house, you could eat your dinner off the flare, but there was no nurturing going on, there was no love going on. It was everybody's in their own room on their phone, and he was in his room playing his PlayStation all day. There was too much of that going on. So, if I've come out, I've just turned him into this. He's still a wee bit to go. He's a 12-year-old boy, obviously, but the comparison between who he is now and who he was when I go, it's night and day, man. And that's all down to me, just building him into a teenager that he's got to be next year, know what I mean?
Well, and that's so important, is because you're being present. You're not just there in a physical present. You're being present there emotionally. You're connecting with him on a deeper level. You're showing him, that because love is a verb, mate, and I agree with you. It's the actions you take. It's an action word. It's what you're doing. You're showing. You're expressing. But see, when you came out, how was it to reintegrate into society? Did you get your son straight away? When you came
No,
out,
no,
did you,
no,
you know?
no. So basically, what happened was my ex-partner was hiding things from me, um, and she had issues that she was hiding. At first, I didn't notice when I got out of prison, but the longer I was out, the more I started putting two and two together. That's what I'm saying. I might not click on to start with, but I'll go away and think about it long enough until I have to. If I know something's not right. So basically, when I got out in September 2019, I got this house that I'm in just now in December. And I just basically took him by about March, April 2020. Now, it didn't say he couldn't get around his mum's and all that, but he wanted to live with his dad, and I wanted him full time, and she just allowed it. Know what I mean? And when I did come out, do you know what? See, I remember going to the shop Lackland, right? So imagine being in Berlin in shorts, right? You want to buy a bottle of juice. There's two choices. There's take it and there's leave it. There's Coke and there's Iron Brew. So I'd go, I'm going to go down to a shop and buy a bottle of juice. And I'd go down, mate, and there was about 200 different bottles, brands, flavours, and I had a panic attack trying to decide what bottle of juice to buy. Um, I used to hit panic attacks. I still do going seafood shopping, pushing a trolley around a supermarket. I felt when I first got, I felt like this big neon sign on me saying "Just do it, ex-offender." I felt like that. But I've been out 4 years now. I'm blending in a bit better and handling it a bit better. But there's just things that are just it's more stressful. But you know what? I suppose it's a better stress than like where I've been before, the life I've had before. You know what I mean? You're always going to have some form of stressors in your life, things you don't want to do, but you know what? You just need to get up and fucking do it, man. If you want to, you've got responsibilities as an adult to yourself and to your kid, so just need to soldier on, man.
100%, mate. I see now, right, mate? Obviously, now that you're spreading a message out there, you know what I mean. You're trying to make people aware and helping the young team know get doing this, gonna go down the same road as you went. Was there a specific moment or a realization that you said that shaped your maybe your commitment to breaking that cycle of violence or try to help people? Was there some kind of thing you said, you know what? I'm gonna get out there. I'm gonna start talking about this.
No, basically, what happened was, so when I got out, I was meant to go and do my PhD in 2020, right? Now I'd filled the application and not, but see the one part of that application that I had to get bang on, that was my weakest part, methodology, how you're going to collect your data. But I didn't really know how to, because that's not really I just get bored with all that. Do you know what I mean? And then COVID hit, so I was just sitting about and all that, and people kept saying to me, man, you should do a podcast, you've got some mad stories, and I'm like, podcast, fuck that, know what I mean, no want my face out there and getting recognised in the street, see, whatever, anything, like, I just used to think of the negatives as opposed to the positives, right? So, the more people said it to me, and I'd watched a few American podcasts, right, as I say, Big West, Blood and the Razor Wire, and then I ended up watching a UK based channel, Behind the Bars TV, it's called, right? Big Ricky Killeen, man. Watched some of his, and I was just like, I'm going to have, I don't know, it just made me think, have a bash, right? So what I done was, I made a video, right? And I sent it to a guy. Now, this guy's not involved in crime or anything like that. It's a guy who I can trust to give me an honest opinion, and he's not going to piss up my back and tell me it's raining. Do you know what I mean? I sent it to him, and he says to me, that was very good, blah, blah, blah. My wife was saying, oh, that guy's some talker. And see, the funny thing is, right, I just done that, and what? Fuck it, man, both. Thought of a name for a channel, posted the first video, right, and then started doing it for there, and just doing it, and just being myself, like, as if I'm talking to somebody, like sitting in the couch next to me. I just look at it like that, like, and the funny thing is the amount of comments that people have left saying the same thing that this guy said. His wife was saying I could listen to him talk for ages. He's a good talker, not so. When I done that, this woman who I knew from prison, she was an old head teacher. She runs a place in Kilmarnock, right? And she wrote letters to the pro board for me and all that. Still wasn't getting pro. I had letters for professors for the pro board. Still didn't get it. Letters of recommendation for a professor and a woman wearing company, right? Still didn't get it. But anyway, so this woman, when she saw that video, or the first couple of videos, she said, because she kept telling me, you need to do a TED Talk. You know what a TED Talk is?
Aye, mate, I do.
So she
That's one of my goals.
she done a TED Talk, right? And she got an honorary PhD, and she mentioned me in her acceptance speech. You can find the video on YouTube. She's like, look this guy up, he's so inspirational, and I'm sitting thinking, so am I, fuck's sake, know what I mean? But I'll take it. But anyway, she's like, she's always saying to me about doing a TED Talk, and I'm like, and then see when I had made that channel, she messaged me and said, that's it, you're doing this. And she's got me doing it next year. So, and she's like, I'm getting all, because she knows all these philanthropists, and not want to say their names on here, just in case I don't want the mention, you know what I mean? But it's just been going from strength to strength, building up gradually, man. I've only been doing it for a couple of months, and it seems to be working for me, do you know what I mean? So do you know what? Maybe that was what I was supposed to be doing, because see, the thing is, Lachlan, right? See when I got to the end of my degree, I was publishing for the start. Usually people don't really start publishing to their like masters and PhDs. I was doing it for the jump, and I was getting messages and letters for Australia, these academics in Australia, and it was just bolstering me. But you know what? Who for the scheme's going to sit and read the Journal of Prison Rehabilitation and all this? Because in an academic style, the writing is completely different, and we're in a world now where a lot of people want to do it this way, the visual way. Do you know what I mean? And it'll reach a lot more people, because academics can watch this, and people for the scheme and everywhere in between. You know what I mean? So do you know what I mean? I think it just it just happened, mate, and it's kind of
I mean,
a wee niche or
I
something.
love it, mate. I love it, mate, because I agree with what the other people have said. You know what I mean? That's how I found you, was just watching one of your videos, and I've watched countless other ones since, mate. I can listen to you talking to bother, and the way you explain stuff. But I think having your degree is super important as well, mate, because you've now got the knowledge, and you can understand why the behaviours are happening. So you can then help other people understand that, people who don't know the textbook analogies and all that kind of lingo, because if you're going to try to speak to somebody through the scheme, you're talking their language because you've
Yeah.
lived that life, but you still have the information to help them understand the kind of deeper topics. So looking back, and your experience, how has that experience shaped your views on the rehabilitation in the prison service?
I don't think that there is rehabilitation. I think rehabilitation comes from in here. You realise that you don't want to do this stuff anymore and take steps towards that goal. But in regards to the prison service, they're kidding themselves on, to put it bluntly. The reoffending rate is almost constant over time. History's shown this. In prison numbers are going up in Scotland now, after saying last year or the year before, we're going to cut the use of remand. How's remand at its highest now then? Do you get me? I could
Yeah,
go on for ages. They're just it's all about their what they call KPIs, key performance indicators. It's a business to them. They run it like a business. It's called managerialism. They're running it like a corporation. It's all about targets and all that. So I say to them, how have you not got a KPI for coursework failure, guys who've reoffended after doing all these courses? The people who brought these courses out were in Canadian academics. They discontinued them because reoffending was either going up or staying the same. But we're making people do them through coercing them, saying if you don't do X, Y, and Z course, you're not getting parole and it'll not look good for you. They're coercing guys to do them, and guys are doing them to tick boxes. I was the same because, listen, I knew before I even set foot in one course, I wanted to change, and I felt the change happening, right? I felt it happening, but these courses, some of them are written in an academic style, right? They're written by academics, and you're trying to tell me that a guy who's maybe get an education up to secondary is going to sit and listen to that, mate. I was doing a degree and it was giving me a sore head. What was a guy like that hadn't done his schooling? Guys were just sitting there like that. So it's all this. It's all about their objectives, and see if you ever read a thing called the Scottish Prison Service Corporate Plan, right? Now they bring one of these out every 2 years or something. And I referenced one in my thesis, right? And in that corporate plan, it was for the year 2014 to 2017. This was their outlook. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So what they said in that was, and this is a quote off the top of my head: "We are going to embed a desistance-based approach at the heart of purposeful activity." Now, I'll break that down. Desistance is what I said. How and why people stop reoffending. That's what desistance from crime is all about. Now, purposeful activity, for your viewers who might not know what that means, purposeful activity in prison is doing something constructive with your day, i.e. work, education, gym, visits, right? So they're basically saying, for what I can deconstruct that sentence, is we're going to start teaching guys about desistance, right? Now, that was 2014 to 2017. I graduated with my degree in 2017, so that's when I found this document. There was no desistance-based approach at the heart of any purposeful activity across the Scottish penal estate, right? So then they brought the next one out. We are going to start targeting serious organised crime groups because there's two well-known organised crime groups for Glasgow who's a lot of people involved in this stuff were all getting sentences, right? So they're maybe hinting intelligence bonanza. So they've patched the desistance and then they've started this one. And then I've read the most recent one, right? online, and it said, we are going to embed trauma-informed practices in our, we're going to basically look at everything through a trauma-informed lens. Now, let me say this, right? The trauma-informed practices should be used in the young offenders and for women prisoners. See, for the males, the adult males, that ship has sailed, man. Nobody's going to talk to you about trauma, and it's going to come across as patronising, right? What should be used for the male adults is desistance, right? And use the trauma-informed practices in for the women and the young offenders. Do you know what I mean? It's just that mate, they've no. I'm just not got to be about a bush. Some people might think I'm coming across like a prick, but I'm going to say it. They've not got a clue what they're doing. They never have. Why did they shut the special units? Because they were working. Know what I mean? Probably had more success stories out the special units than they have out of any jail they've got. They shut them down.
So what?
Anything that works in
So
jail,
what's this?
they shut it down. They discontinue it.
What's a special unit, mate? What does that involve?
So basically, there was a couple of special units, right, in Scotland. So Ballina had one, Peterhead had one, the old Peterhead shots, and it was basically for the guys who were too hard to handle. But then, see, when they went, it was like a more lax regime. They would sit painting all day and therapy, group work, getting to know a small group of prisoners, and like instead of these guys being in a hall or a block full of 500 guys where they're just running about crazy, stirring up trouble, causing riots, doing screws or this. So you had a couple of high profile guys in it who made a success of their lives. And they found that these special units were very a therapeutic environment, and they're going about this. Norway's prison system is so therapeutic, but they write about it in the research. How they know implementing it? Is it too much money? Did they not want to? They had the special units that were kind of almost a microcosm of the Nordic penal model, and they shut them down. Too much money. Well, what do you
Is
want?
that
Do you
what
want to
would
stop
you
reoffending, or
if
do you want to spend money?
if you were in charge of that, mate? You know, what would you say would be the answer? Because obviously you're coming for that. You've lived that for nearly 20 years of your life. So, and you've obviously transitioned and you're rehabilitated. You're doing good in the world. You know, you're no reoffending. So, what would you say would be the key to rehabilitation?
One, I wouldn't say I'm rehabilitated. I would say I've reformed. To me, I don't like
Reform,
the word rehabilitated because it means to me you were restored to the state you were in before all this, and I'm no. I still have
right?
thoughts, right? And old thinking models kick in certain situations, but it's thoughts, feelings, actions. It never gets to the actions, right? And I'm not going to profess to have the answer for rehabilitation because it's not a one size fits all model. You know what I mean? It has to come from here. You have to want to do it. Nobody's going to help you. Nobody's got to give you any help unless they see a change, and it's going to be hard. It is hard, right? But see, if you want a new life, what do you want? Do you want a new life, or do you want to just keep living the way you've lived, being miserable and think the world's out to get you and everything's a scam and you need to get in there first? And so I'm not going to make out I have the answers. I can only speak for what helped me. In learning about desistance, if somebody could find a way to put work into a desistance course, right, that wasn't written in an academic style, um, and they put some time into it, no a 6 month course 3-month course, that's you've got your certificate, on you go. Please, man. This is a lifelong process. This journey stops when you stop. When you die, that's when it's up. It's no, you done your 3-month desistance course, you've got your certificate, away you go, you're a success. No, man, not at all. Not at all, man. It's just, you need to recognise why you were offending, what was triggering that offending, and what you're going to do to stop doing that. Basically, for me, that's what I think. You know what I mean?
mate. And it makes sense to me, mate, because you know everything you said there. Because when you said that, it's because I battled addiction, and
Right?
I, people tried to get me to stop for many times. I got sent to rehab a couple of times when I didn't actually truly want to stop. It wasn't until I wanted the change myself, like, and that's when you said there, it has to come for the individual that has to want to
Yeah,
make the change,
yeah.
and you know what I mean. So that could be the same, you know, for addiction, for offending, and you know what you're saying is it's 100%, you know, and that makes sense to me. And reforming, you know, helping people get reformed because they've lived a life of offending. You know, 3 months is not going to just, you know, make everything all rosy, you know, make everything all perfect. You know, but now that you are out, mate, and you're living this positive life, you know, what about people who are skeptic? You know, how do you deal with the judgment or skepticism? You know, from other people that find it hard to believe that, and that your kind of transformation.
Ignore it, or else
And
keep going from strength to strength and show them by doing what I'm doing. Listen, man, see the life I'm living right now. I'm not living the high life by any stretch, but compared to the way I was living 10 years ago, I'm all. Do you know what I mean? And I appreciate all these wee small things, man. Like being able to take my son to a football game, being able to take my son to his karate, being able to go online, strike up a relationship with a woman. These were all things I couldn't do in prison. And I don't have MD with any negative energy around me. When I first got out, there was people around me with negative energy, and I just cut them all off because it's no good for my mental health. Know what I mean? I'm like sitting. There was one point where I was arguing with my other side, because of one or two people. So see, just cut them off. You don't think about it. So obviously, I get why people would be skeptical, but and at the same time, like living that life, like it could go wrong at any day. So I just make sure I take steps not to get into these situations anymore. There was a couple of wee situations when I got. There was one a couple of months ago with my brother, but I just cut everybody off. You know, if you're not showing me evidence you're changing as well, if you're involved in addiction and you're even if you're related to me, you're involved in addiction, you're involved in whatever, I need to cut you off. I just have to. Do you know what I mean? So
mate,
people
a
can be
hundred percent,
skeptical
a
all they
hundred
want, mate.
percent.
You know what I mean?
And that's the same when it comes to like I've had to do that in my life as well. So I totally get that. But how do you approach self-reflection now? What role does that play in your kind of ongoing development? How do you look at that? The thoughts that you have, because you said, thoughts, feelings, actions. Is it a specific thing that you do regularly? Like for me, it's meditation and journaling. Is there anything that you do to look at that, like yourself?
I don't know, mate, to be honest with you, because I've always been like that. Um, I've always had to look myself in the mirror. It's inbuilt in me, I think. But I look at where I was and where I'm at, who I was and who I am, and it feels funny because there's always people going, "You're doing amazing," and mate, listen, I've got like PTSD and that. Sometimes I can't leave my house. Get mad nightmares and all that. I was meant to go to an event on Boxing Day and totally shat out it because I was overthinking it. I was like, my stomach was gone because I'd ate all this rich food. I just sat on Christmas Day and pigged out all day. Wasn't drinking or nothing. I was like, I'm going to, usually I'll sit and have a few beer, whatever, for the Christmas Day and that. And I just thought, nah, I'm going to this Hingamora. Didn't bother. And then ate all this crap the next day. My stomach was like a washing machine, right? And I kept thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get down here. It's going to be mobbed and blah blah blah. So sometimes it's just that's to me that's just a byproduct to where I've been and all that. Just and these aren't the bad people, do you know? These I'm not like walking into some mad gang hut where they're all plotting and planning. It was just a charity event, and I was just like, no, I'm better safe than sorry, and blah blah blah. And I felt, do you know what, mate? I'm not gonna lie, I felt like a total idiot. I just because sometimes what you're saying, the self doubt, we've all got it.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, I'll just sit in the house and just eating whatever. And oh, I did. I felt like a bit of a loser. But do you know what? I always pick myself back up, mate. Always pick myself back up, and it wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't humongous, but I felt I could have pushed myself and I didn't. So I'm looking at just, do you know what? It's funny that if I've been looking at your channel and that, and what you've been saying on your Insta and all that, I actually wrote down a list of goals for 2024. There's about 12 things on it, and they're all totally achievable. I've never done that, mate. I've never done that. See, when I hear people talking about, like, see a lot of the things you're talking about, right? I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I can't do that. I can't do that. Blah blah blah. And then see like positive self-talk, motivational speak, like all this kind of stuff. And then I see yesterday I done this. Fuck this, because I want shit for myself. I want to achieve and achieve and achieve and achieve and achieve. So that see when I'm on my deathbed, I'm remembering all the good shit I done. I'm not remembering all the chances I didn't take and going, fuck, what did I not take that chance for? It's what I always say when I'm asking a lassie out and I get told no. I always say, better an oops than a what if. You know what I mean? And I was overcompensating for that by when I was a kid. I was super shy that way, but I've just wrote down a list of goals that I want, and I'm going to look at it this time next year and see how many I've scored off it. And I'm just going to do this every year from now on. Know what I mean?
Mate, and I love hearing that, mate, because the way I see it is, see if you don't have something to aim for, then it's like pissing in the wind. You just don't know what
Just
direction
going
it's
round in
going to go,
circles.
you know? Aye, so if you've got that goals and these things, then at least you know these are the steps I need to take. If I want that, then I have to do this, this, and this. So it gives you direction, it gives you clarity, you know. And I think it's so important because that's why I've been doing that for the past 4 or 5 years, and it's worked for me. So and I
Mm-hmm.
always recommend people doing it, and not everybody wants to do that, but it's like everybody has their own thing, you know, and. And we'll just finish. I've took so much of your time, mate. But
All
what,
right.
what, you know, what message of hope or encouragement, could you give, anybody out there who's facing adversity or struggling to change their lives, or who's stuck in a prison cell, thinking that, they've got fucking nothing to offer.
Find what you're good at. Find something to hold on to, and don't give up. And um, just knock the old habits on the head. That see, like when the old start looking inwards and stop looking outwards. Stop looking at what the guy in the next cell's going to say if you don't go and bar X, Y, and Z, or punch that screw, or whatever. Start looking at yourself and what you want for life and what you want to do, and just find a way to fucking get it, man. You'll find a way if you want it that bad. You will. I was written off at 21, written off, and here I'm at. Know what I mean? It can
Life
only
is
get
just
better.
beginning for you. Exactly.
Aye.
And for anybody that wants to follow Kris, I'm going to have his links in the description here. But it's Tin Pail TV. You know, get
Yep.
on there and give him a follow and a subscribe, and tune into his videos, because there's a lot of good stuff on there for people who just want to understand, many different aspects of prison life, but also, he talks about the youth culture and youth gangs and the consequences and stuff like that. So the links will be in my description. And is there anything else you would like to say before we finish up, big man?
No, mate, just thanks for reaching out. Thanks for having me on and that. Know what I mean? You've got your channel's different from mine, obviously, but I see it going places, mate. So just keep plugging away. If you want it that badly, mate, you'll get it, man. Just find a way and just keep doing it, mate. You know what I mean?
100%, mate. You've been an inspiration already to me. You know what I mean? So, and that's the
Cheers,
thing
mate.
is, I always believe that we all connect for a reason, and just seeing what you're doing, mate, it's amazing. So I'll be definitely tuning in, and this will not be the last time we jump on here. We'll jump on for
Aye,
a round
defo.
two. You know. And so I appreciate your time today, big man. And I wish you all the best for the future. And
Cheers,
as I
same to
said,
you, mate.
everybody, I'll put the links down. I'll put the links downstairs for anybody that wants to reach out.